Ever wish there was like a cheat sheet for life, you know? A guide to help navigate all the tricky parts, like how to nail that job interview or finally stop procrastinating.
Well, you're in luck. We're diving deep today into the best self-help books. It's like a collection of wisdom from some of the most brilliant minds in personal development. Think of it as a shortcut to a library of life-changing advice, all packed into this one episode.
I like the sound of that. So, where do we even begin with this epic journey of self-discovery?
Let's start with a classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, this book came out way back in 1936,
Okay.
but it's still hugely popular today. Any guesses why?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm always a little skeptical of anything written before, like I was born, but I'm open to being convinced.
Fair enough. Well, Carnegie really hit on something timeless. It's that basic human need for connection. He believes the key to winning friends and influencing people is to genuinely care about them.
Okay.
It's about putting your ego aside and really trying to understand their perspective.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. But how do you actually do that?
Well, the article mentions Samantha's story. She was a really talented software engineer, but incredibly shy. She had trouble connecting with colleagues.
I can relate to that.
Right. So she decided to apply Carnegie's principle of becoming genuinely interested in others. Instead of just waiting for her turn to talk, she started asking her coworkers about their projects, their families, things they were interested in.
So basically, she became a master conversationalist just by actually being interested.
Exactly. And you
Yeah.
know what? People loved it. They
Mm.
felt seen and appreciated. Samantha's relationships at work really blossomed. She actually ended up leading a team because people were just drawn to her genuine interest in them.
So Carnegie's secret weapon is just being a good human. That almost seems too simple.
It is simple, but that doesn't mean it's always easy. Putting others first takes effort and intention. But as we see in Samantha's story, the rewards can be huge.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this book has remained relevant all these years. It's like that be kind, rewind message, but for life.
I love that. Speaking of simple but powerful advice, let's move on to a book all about building habits that stick. Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've heard of this one. It's
Yeah.
about making small changes that add up over time, right?
You got it. Clear argues that we tend to overestimate the importance of big goals, and we underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. He uses this great analogy of an airplane taking off. If you adjust the course by just a few degrees, it might not seem like much at first,
Right.
but over a long flight, it makes a huge difference in where you land.
It's like the butterfly effect of self-improvement.
Yeah.
Tiny changes creating big waves.
I love that. And Clear gives us some really practical tools to make those small changes, like the 2-minute rule, for example. Have you heard of this one?
Vaguely. It's about starting small, right?
Exactly. The idea is that any new habit can be started in just 2 minutes. So instead of saying, I'm going to run a marathon, you start with, I'm going to put on my running shoes.
Okay, that does sound a lot less daunting than like facing a full 26.2-mile run.
Right. And the best part is, once you've taken that first small step, you're much more likely to just keep going.
I see what you mean. It's like you're tricking your brain into taking action.
You got it. And Clear doesn't stop there. He also talks about habit stacking. This is basically linking a new habit to one you already have. For example, you already drink coffee every morning.
Right.
You could stack a new habit, like 5 minutes of meditation on top of that. So every time you finish your coffee, boom, you automatically head to your meditation cushion.
That's brilliant. Takes the decision out of it. No more mental debates about should I or shouldn't I.
Exactly. You're building a positive chain reaction of good habits.
I like it.
And speaking of positive chain reactions, let's talk about a book that's all about transforming your inner world. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay, I have to admit, this one intrigues me, but it also kind of intimidates me. Like mindfulness can seem a little out there.
I get it. But trust me, Tolle's message is really simple at its core, even if it takes some effort to put into practice. The main idea is that most of our suffering comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
Yeah, which, honestly, I think we all do way too much.
Right. Our minds are like time machines, constantly replaying old hurts or imagining worst-case scenarios. Tolle's solution is to bring our attention back to the present moment, to become aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. It's like hitting the pause button on that mental chatter.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? I mean, we can't just switch off our thoughts, right?
True, it takes practice. But there are simple techniques, like focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations in your body, or just paying attention to the sounds around you. Anything that anchors you to the present moment.
So it's like a mental workout for being more present. Do you have a favorite mindfulness move that you use?
One of the simplest but most powerful techniques is just to take 3 conscious breaths. Whenever you feel your mind racing, stop for a second and focus on the sensation of your breath. It's amazing how quickly that can bring you back to a sense of calm.
Huh, a 3-breath reset button. I
Exactly.
like that. I can
Yeah.
see how that would be helpful when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Might even try it right now.
What's fascinating is that even brief moments of mindfulness can have a ripple effect throughout your day, like we see in Maria's story in the article.
Oh, yeah.
Maria was going through a really difficult divorce. She felt completely consumed by anxiety. Reading The Power of Now helped her realize she didn't have to be controlled by her thoughts. By practicing that present moment awareness, she started to find moments of peace in the middle of all the chaos.
Wow, that's powerful. It's like finding your inner peace, one breath at a time.
Exactly. And speaking of powerful transformations, let's move on to a book about manifesting your dreams. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Ooh, that title is ambitious.
Yeah.
I'm ready to learn how to grow rich, literally and figuratively.
Get ready, because Hill gets right to the point. He spent years studying some of the most successful people of his time,
Wow.
people like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. He then distilled their wisdom into a set of principles for achieving just about anything you set your mind to.
Okay, I'm hooked. What are these magical principles?
Hill's main idea is that our thoughts are incredibly powerful.
Okay.
He believes that strong desire, combined with unwavering belief, can actually shape your reality. He calls it the law of attraction. It's the idea that you attract what you focus on.
Wait, so you're saying that if I just think about being rich really hard, money will magically appear in my bank account?
No, it's not quite that simple, but Hill does emphasize the importance of visualization, vividly picturing yourself having already achieved your goals.
Okay.
He believed that this helps to kind of program your subconscious mind for success. Like Jim Carrey. He famously wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered back when he was still struggling. He visualized his success every single day. And just a few years later, he earned that exact amount for his role in Dumb and Dumber.
Wow, talk about manifesting your dreams.
Yeah.
But he also worked incredibly hard to achieve his goals, right? Visualizing alone doesn't make you a comedic genius.
Of course not. Action is crucial, and Hill stresses that too. But he argues that the right mindset is essential for taking effective action. You need to cultivate an unshakable belief in yourself and your ability to achieve your goals, even when you face obstacles.
So it's like a mental power-up for tackling your goals.
Yeah.
You've got to believe you can do it before you can actually do it.
Exactly. And Hill also emphasizes surrounding yourself with the right people. He calls this creating a mastermind group.
Okay.
It's a circle of supportive people who share your vision and encourage you to grow.
So it's like having your own personal cheerleading squad for success.
You got it.
I like it.
And while we're on the topic of support systems, let's shift gears to a book that explores finding meaning when facing unimaginable suffering. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
This one sounds intense. I know it's about Frankel's experience in a Nazi concentration camp, right? That must have been horrific.
It was beyond what most of us can even imagine. But his message is incredibly inspiring. He argues that even in the most awful circumstances, we still have the freedom to choose our attitude and to find meaning.
That's powerful. But how is that even possible in the face of such unimaginable suffering?
Frankl observed that those who survived the camps often did so because they found a reason to keep going, a purpose that transcended their immediate situation. For some, it was the hope of seeing loved ones again.
Right.
For others, it was wanting to bear witness to the horrors they had experienced.
So it's like finding a light in the darkness, a reason to keep going when everything feels hopeless.
You're exactly right. And Frankl says this search for meaning isn't limited to extreme situations. It's something we can all strive for in our daily lives.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this book could apply to anyone, not just those who have been through extreme hardship. It's about finding that inner spark that keeps you going.
Exactly. Frankl's message is so powerful because it reminds us that even when we can't control what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. He said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude at any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way."
Wow, that's an incredible quote. It's like a reminder that we always have a choice, even when it feels like we don't.
Exactly. Speaking of making choices that lead to a more fulfilling life, let's move on to a book that offers a roadmap for personal and professional effectiveness. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Classic. I think I've even seen this on my dad's bookshelf. 7 Habits, though. That's a lot to remember.
Well, think of them more like guiding principles for living a more intentional and impactful life. They cover things like prioritizing your values, developing strong communication skills, and fostering win-win situations.
Okay, that sounds pretty comprehensive. Are all 7 habits equally important? Or are there a couple that really stand out?
It's a good question. They all have value.
Yeah.
But let's highlight a couple that are really relevant to our conversation. First, begin with the end in mind. Covey says we should always start with a clear vision of our desired outcome.
Right.
It's like knowing your destination before you start a journey.
So it's about knowing where you want to go before you figure out how to get there. That makes sense. But what about all the unexpected detours and roadblocks we run into? Life rarely goes according to plan, right?
Oh, absolutely. But having that clear vision helps you stay focused on your goals,
Right.
even when things get messy. It's like having a compass to guide you back on track when you inevitably get lost.
Okay, that's super helpful. Like a mental GPS for life. What about that other habit you mentioned?
Ah, yes. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This one's all about empathy and communication.
Okay.
Covey says most of us listen with the intention to reply, not to truly understand the other person's perspective.
Ouch, that one hits a little too close to home. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
We all are. But Covey challenges us to be more active listeners,
Yeah.
to really focus on what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Okay.
He says when we genuinely seek to understand, we create an environment of trust and respect. And that leads to better communication.
That makes so much sense. It's like putting down your own agenda for a minute and trying to see the world through the other person's eyes. Pretty amazing how something so simple can be so powerful.
It really is. And speaking of simple yet powerful ideas, let's talk about a book that's all about embracing your authentic self. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Oh, I love the title. It's so bold and empowering. I'm guessing this book is not for the faint of heart.
You're spot on. Sincero's approach is all about ditching self-doubt and stepping into your power.
Okay.
She encourages you to let go of those limiting beliefs that are holding you back and embrace your awesomeness.
It's like a much-needed dose of self-love. But how does she help you actually do that?
Sincero blends humor and tough love. She uses real-life stories, witty anecdotes, and practical exercises to help you identify and challenge your negative self-talk.
Okay.
She's like that sassy best friend who calls you out on your BS, but also believes in you more than you believe in yourself.
I love that. It's like a personal cheerleader for your soul.
Exactly. And one of the things I appreciate about Sincero's approach is that she acknowledges that self-love isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
It's about accepting all parts of yourself, even the messy, imperfect parts.
That's so important. It's easy to get caught up in the perfect Instagram life and forget that we all have flaws. Embracing those flaws is what makes us human.
Absolutely. Speaking of embracing our humanity, let's talk about the last book for this part of our deep dive, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
I've heard of this one. It's about living a more fulfilling life by adopting 4 simple agreements. Right?
Yes. Ruiz draws on ancient Toltec wisdom to offer a framework for personal freedom and happiness. His 4 agreements are like guiding principles for navigating life with more grace, integrity, and peace.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are these magical agreements?
Get ready. Because they're deceptively simple but really challenging to actually put into practice, the first agreement is be impeccable with your word.
Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. Don't lie, don't gossip.
But it goes deeper than that. Ruiz argues that our words are incredibly powerful. They can create or destroy, uplift, or tear down.
Wow.
Being impeccable with your word means speaking with integrity, kindness, and awareness. It means choosing your words carefully and using them to build trust and understanding.
Wow, that's deeper than I initially thought. It's like recognizing the weight of your words. And using them intentionally makes you think twice before you speak, huh?
Exactly. And speaking of pausing before you react, the second agreement is don't take anything personally.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Especially these days with social media. Everyone's got an opinion.
You're so right. Ruiz argues that most of the time, other people's actions and words actually have nothing to do with us. They're a reflection of their own beliefs, values, and experiences. When we take things personally, we give our power away, and we let their negativity affect us.
Okay, that would be incredibly freeing to not let other people's stuff weigh you down. But how do you actually do that? It's easy to say don't take it personally, but much harder to actually let go of those feelings. Hurt or anger.
You're right. It takes practice. Ruiz suggests we try to see other people's actions as a gift,
Oh,
even if it's a painful one.
okay.
He says that when someone mistreats you, it's an opportunity to practice compassion and understanding. It's a chance to realize their behavior is probably coming from their own pain or insecurity.
That's a powerful way to look at it. It's like turning a negative experience into a lesson in empathy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the importance of connection, habits, mindfulness, mindset, meaning, effectiveness, self-love, and personal agreements.
Wow, when you put it like that, it sounds like we've covered almost every aspect of human existence. My brain is officially full.
I hear you. It is a lot to absorb.
Yeah.
But remember, the key is to focus on one step at a time. Choose one book that speaks to you and really dive into its wisdom. We'll be back soon to continue our exploration into the rest of the books on this amazing list. Welcome back to our deep dive into the best self-help books. Are you ready for more wisdom and practical tools to create a life you love?
Oh, I am so ready. Last time we talked about building connections, mastering habits, and finding meaning even in tough times. It's really amazing how all these authors from different times and backgrounds all seem to agree that we have more power over our lives than we think.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of self-help, right? It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles and that there are proven strategies for overcoming challenges and making positive changes. So where should we go next on our journey of self-discovery?
Hmm. Let's dive into a book that speaks to my inner control freak. Getting Things Done: The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. I'm all about efficiency and organization, so I'm curious to see what he has to offer.
Ah, yes, the GTD method. It's a productivity Bible for a reason. Alan's approach is all about capturing all your tasks, ideas, and commitments in a system you can trust, so you free up mental space and can focus on what matters most.
Okay, that sounds interesting. But isn't that just a fancy way of saying make a to-do list?
Well, it's more than that. Alan argues that our minds are for having ideas, not holding them.
Okay.
When we try to keep track of everything in our heads, it just creates mental clutter and stress. His system is designed to get all those swirling thoughts and tasks out of your head so you can stop feeling overwhelmed and start taking action.
So it's like giving your brain a much-needed decluttering session.
Exactly. The GTD method has a 5-step process: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage.
Okay, break it down for me. What do those steps look like in real life?
First, you capture everything that's taking up space in your mind, everything from that errand you keep forgetting to that brilliant business idea you had in the shower.
Right.
Alan suggests having a physical inbox or a digital note-taking app to collect all these things.
Okay, so it's like creating one central place for all your mental clutter.
Precisely. Then you clarify each item. Ask yourself, what is it? Can you take action on it? What's the next step?
So you turn those vague ideas and to-dos into concrete action steps.
Exactly. Then you organize those action steps into categories based on context, priority, and deadlines.
Okay.
This might involve making to-do lists, setting reminders, or delegating tasks.
So it's like you're creating a roadmap for getting things done. I can see how this would be super helpful for people who juggle a lot of different projects, like me.
Exactly. The next step is reflect. Alan believes it's important to regularly review your system. Make sure it's still working with your goals and priorities.
So it's not just a set it and forget it kind of thing. You have to stay on top of it.
Exactly. And finally, you engage. You actually take action based on what you learned during your reflection.
Okay, the GTD method sounds a lot more complex than I thought. It's like a whole system for managing your entire life, both personal and professional.
You're right. It's a powerful tool if you want to feel more in control of your time and energy.
And speaking of feeling in control, let's move on to a book that tackles something we all struggle with: Daring Greatly: How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead by Brené Brown.
Ah, Brené Brown. Her research on vulnerability, shame, and courage has really helped so many people.
I've seen some of her TED Talks. Super insightful. But that idea of daring greatly feels a bit intimidating. What does that even mean?
Brown argues that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's the source of courage, creativity, and connection. Daring greatly means being authentic, showing up as you are even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. It's about embracing imperfection, letting yourself be seen, flaws and all.
Right, that makes sense logically.
Yeah.
But emotionally, it still feels scary. Why would anyone choose to be vulnerable? Especially when it opens you up to the possibility of rejection or judgment.
It is kind of a paradox, isn't it? We all want connection to belong, but we're terrified to let people see the real us because we're afraid of being hurt or rejected. Brown says that this fear of vulnerability is what keeps us stuck
Stuck in what way?
in a cycle of shame and disconnection.
So it's like this self-protective thing that actually ends up backfiring.
Exactly. When we try to protect ourselves from vulnerability, we also block ourselves from the possibility of true joy, love, and belonging.
Okay, I'm starting to see the importance of being vulnerable. But how do we cultivate that courage to be our true selves, especially when it feels so scary?
Brown says self-compassion is crucial. We need to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a good friend. Instead of criticizing ourselves for our flaws, we need to acknowledge them with gentleness.
Yeah.
Recognize that they're part of what makes us human.
So it's about accepting ourselves, warts and all. That sounds a lot easier said than done, especially in a culture that's obsessed with perfection.
It's definitely an ongoing process, not a one-time thing. But Brown gives some great advice for developing self-compassion.
Like what?
Things like mindfulness, challenging negative self-talk, and surrounding yourself with people who love and accept you for who you are.
I love that. It's like building this fortress of self-love to shield yourself from all the self-doubt and criticism.
Exactly. Speaking of building a strong foundation, let's talk about a book that's all about healthy relationships. The 5 Love Languages: The Secret to Love That Lasts by Gary Chapman.
Oh, I've heard about this one. Isn't it about how people express and experience love in different ways?
Exactly. Chapman's main point is that we all have a primary love language. It's the way we feel most loved and appreciated. These languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch.
Okay, I can see how this would be really helpful. It's like understanding your partner's emotional language, so you can really speak to their heart in a way that they understand.
Exactly. Often, couples are speaking different love languages without even realizing it. For example, let's say your love language is quality time
Okay.
and your partner's is acts of service. You might feel unloved if they're always doing chores around the house instead of hanging out with you, even though they're trying to show they care.
Oh, wow. I can see how that could lead to a lot of misunderstandings and hurt feelings.
Hmm.
So the key is to recognize that what makes you feel loved might not be the same for your partner and vice versa.
Exactly. And Chapman's book helps us understand and appreciate those differences.
So it's like a cheat sheet for understanding your partner's emotional needs. I'm adding this to my reading list.
Great choice. And since we're talking about understanding ourselves and others, let's look at a book that gives a really fascinating perspective on personality types. Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain.
Oh, I'm an introvert, so I'm into this one. But I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical of personality tests. They always feel too oversimplified.
I understand your skepticism, but Cain's book is more than just about personality types.
Okay.
It celebrates introversion and challenges our cultural bias towards extroversion.
So it's a manifesto for us quiet ones. I'm already liking it.
Oh, you'll love it. Cain argues that introverts are often misunderstood and undervalued in a society that prizes those loud voices and big personalities.
Right.
She highlights the unique strengths and contributions of introverts. Things like deep thinking, creativity, and empathy.
It's true. We introverts might not be the life of the party, but we bring a different kind of energy and insight. We just need a bit more time to process our thoughts and figure out how to say them.
Exactly. And Cain argues that this quiet strength is essential in a world that's constantly bombarded by noise and distraction. She says we need to create space for introverts to thrive, both in our personal lives and our workplaces.
That's so important. We need to value all kinds of diversity, including personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how does Kane suggest we make things more introvert-friendly?
She emphasizes creating spaces for solitude and reflection,
Okay.
as well as encouraging deep listening and thoughtful conversation. She also wants introverts to embrace their strengths and find ways to share their unique gifts with the world, even if it means pushing themselves outside their comfort zone.
I love that. It's a good reminder that our differences are not weaknesses. They're assets. They make our world richer. Speaking of enriching our world, let's talk about a book that's all about making a positive impact. Start with Why: How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek. His Golden Circle framework has become so popular. His main message is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Okay, I've heard that before, but I don't know if I fully get it. Can you explain?
Sure. Sinek says most organizations communicate from the outside in, starting with what they do, then how they do it, and finally why. But truly inspiring leaders do the opposite.
Okay.
They start with their purpose, their why, and then move outward to the how and what.
So it's about leading with your heart, not just your head. Inspiring people with passion and purpose, not just products and services.
You got it. Think of companies like Apple or Tesla.
Okay.
They're not just selling products, they're selling a vision of a better future. People are drawn to those brands because they believe in the why behind them.
That makes so much sense. It's not just what you sell, it's the story you tell and the values you embody.
Exactly. And Sinek says this doesn't just apply to businesses, it's true for individuals too.
Yeah,
When you understand your own why, your purpose, it helps you make decisions, pursue your passions, and inspire others.
I love that. It's like finding your North Star and using it to guide you.
And speaking of journeys, let's explore a book that talks about the power of travel. Eat, Pray, Love: One Woman's Journey to Find Herself by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Okay, this one's a bit different from the others we've talked about.
Yeah.
It's more a memoir than a straight-up self-help book.
You're right. It's Gilbert's personal story of self-discovery after going through a divorce and feeling really lost.
Okay.
She travels to Italy, India, and Indonesia, searching for pleasure, spiritual connection, and balance.
So it's about finding yourself by getting lost in new cultures and experiences. I can totally relate to that. Sometimes you need to step outside your everyday life to see things differently.
Exactly. And even though Gilbert's story is unique to her, it speaks to that universal human desire for meaning, connection, and happiness. It reminds us that it's okay to question everything, to let go of old labels, and to go on a journey of self-discovery, even if it means breaking away from what society expects of you.
I love that. It's about giving yourself permission to explore and grow, even if it means taking the long way around.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest things Gilbert learned on her journey? About herself and the world?
One of the most important lessons she learned is that happiness isn't a destination, it's a practice.
Right?
She realized that joy is found in everyday moments, in savoring a delicious meal, connecting with nature, or simply being present with your own thoughts and feelings.
It's beautiful. It's a good reminder that we don't need to wait for something big to happen to experience happiness. It's available to us right here, right now, if we choose to embrace it.
Exactly. Gilbert also learned how important it is to surrender to the unknown, to let go of control and trust that life will work out as it should.
Right.
She realized that sometimes the most unexpected detours lead to the most amazing destinations.
That's such a powerful message. It's about embracing the adventure of life, even when it takes you in unexpected directions. Speaking of adventures, let's move on to a book that challenges us to step outside our comfort zones.
Ugh.
The 4-Hour Workweek: Escape 9 to 5, Live Anywhere, and Join the New Rich by Timothy Ferriss.
Ah, Tim Ferriss, a master of lifestyle design and productivity hacks.
Yeah.
His book is a guide to creating a life of freedom and flexibility, where you're not tied down to a traditional 9-to-5 job.
I'm intrigued, but let's be honest. Is a 4-hour work week even realistic for most people? It sounds like a dream for entrepreneurs and people who travel the world. But what about everyone else?
Yeah.
People with regular jobs and responsibilities.
You're right that it's not a solution for everyone, but Ferriss's ideas can be applied to any lifestyle, even if you don't want to quit your job and travel the world.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of automating or outsourcing tasks,
Right.
prioritizing high-impact activities, and designing a lifestyle that matches your values and goals.
So it's about working smarter, not harder. Finding ways to be more effective with your time and energy so you can focus on what really matters.
You got it. Ferriss encourages us to question the status quo and challenge the idea that we have to work long hours to be successful. He believes we can achieve more by focusing on the right things and cutting out distractions.
Okay, I'm seeing how this book could be helpful, even if you're not planning to ditch your job and become a digital nomad. It's about taking control of your time and creating a life that gives you more freedom and flexibility.
Exactly. And speaking of taking control, let's look at a book all about mastering your emotions. Emotional Intelligence: Why It Can Matter More Than IQ by Daniel Goleman.
Oh, emotional intelligence. I hear that term everywhere, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
Goleman's book was groundbreaking. It explored the significance of emotional intelligence, which he defines as the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as the emotions of others.
Okay, that makes sense. But why is it so important? Isn't IQ, our cognitive abilities, what really matters for success?
Goleman argues that emotional intelligence is actually a better indicator of success in life than IQ. His research shows that people with high emotional intelligence have stronger relationships, perform better at work, and are happier overall.
Interesting. So it's not just about being book smart, it's about being people smart.
Exactly.
Understanding and navigating that complex world of emotions, both your own and other people's.
Exactly. Goleman breaks down emotional intelligence into 5 key components: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills.
Let's unpack those. What does self-awareness mean?
Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions
Okay.
and how they influence your thoughts and behavior. It's about being in touch with your inner world and knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
So it's like having an inner compass for your emotions, being able to read your own emotional map.
You got it. Once you're aware of your emotions, you can start to manage them. Self-regulation is being able to effectively manage your emotions so they don't control you.
So it's like having the emotional maturity to not let your feelings take over.
Exactly. Then there's motivation. Goleman says emotionally intelligent people are driven by a deep sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and they have a strong desire to achieve their goals. They're able to stay focused and bounce back even when things get tough.
So it's about having that inner fire that keeps you going when things get hard.
Exactly. And the fourth component is empathy. Empathy is being able to understand and share the feelings of others. It's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, seeing the world from their perspective.
So it's about having compassion and understanding for others, even when you don't see eye to eye.
You're getting it. And finally, there are social skills. Social skills are being able to build and maintain positive relationships. It's about communicating well, resolving conflicts in a healthy way, and working together towards shared goals.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces of emotional intelligence fit together. It's like a set of tools for dealing with the human experience, both as individuals and in our relationships.
You're exactly right. And Goleman's book gives some great strategies for developing each of these components so you can boost your emotional intelligence and create a richer, more meaningful life.
I love that. It's like a reminder that we can all become more emotionally intelligent, no matter where we're at right now.
Absolutely. Speaking of starting points, let's look at a book that encourages us to rethink how we view success. The Success Principles: How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be by Jack Canfield.
Jack Canfield, the guy from Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'm curious about what he has to say about success. Is it all about positive thinking and visualizing?
Well, Canfield definitely highlights the power of mindset, but his book goes beyond just positive thinking.
Okay.
He offers a comprehensive and practical framework for achieving success in any part of life, from your career to relationships to personal growth.
I'm listening. What are some of the main principles?
Canfield believes that success isn't a fluke. It comes from taking specific actions and building habits. He lays out 67 principles
67. Well,
that cover all kinds of topics like setting goals, taking responsibility, facing your fears, and being resilient.
wow, 67 is a lot. Are there any you think are particularly powerful or life-changing?
One of his most famous principles is ask for what you want.
Okay.
Canfield argues that many people don't get what they want in life because they don't ask for it. He encourages us to be brave and express our needs and desires, whether it's asking for a raise at work or telling someone how much they mean to us.
So it's about overcoming that fear of rejection and putting yourself out there.
Exactly. And Canfield also emphasizes taking action.
Yeah,
He says action is the antidote to fear. When we take action, even if it's not perfect or complete, it helps us push past our doubts and make progress.
I love that. It's a good reminder that progress, not perfection, is what matters.
Another powerful principle is believe it's possible. Canfield says our beliefs shape our reality.
Okay.
If we believe something is impossible, we'll never even try to do it. But if we believe it's possible, we'll be much more likely to take the steps to make it happen.
So it's about cultivating a mindset of possibility,
Yes.
believing in your own potential and the power of your dreams. I'm seeing a theme here, a thread that runs through all these books.
What do you mean?
This idea that we have more control over our lives than we realize, that our thoughts, beliefs, and actions really do shape our reality, and that with the right tools and strategies, we can create the life we want. It's both exciting and a little scary at the same time.
You're absolutely right. That's the beauty and the challenge of self-help. It shows us a map for personal growth, but ultimately it's up to us to grab the wheel and start driving.
I'm ready to hit the gas. But first, let's take a little break to process everything and gear up for the final part of our deep dive. We'll be back soon with more inspiring ideas and practical tips for designing a life you love. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're uncovering the most valuable insights from the best self-help books.
So far, we've gone through books about boosting productivity, embracing vulnerability, understanding love languages, and even the power of being an introvert.
It's been an amazing journey. I'm so excited to see what gems we discover in this last part.
Well, get ready because we're diving into a book that wants us to rethink how we think about money.
Ooh, okay, I'm all ears. Which book is it?
It's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, What the Rich Teach Their Kids About Money That the Poor and Middle Class Do Not, by Robert Kiyosaki.
That title is quite a mouthful and a little provocative, wouldn't you say?
You're right, but that's part of what makes Kiyosaki's message so interesting. He really challenges conventional thinking about money and investing. He says the traditional education system doesn't teach us the financial skills we need to actually build wealth.
So it's like a financial wake-up call.
Exactly. Kiyosaki uses the different perspectives of his own father, who he calls the poor dad. He was a teacher, very educated, but struggled financially.
Okay.
And then his friend's father, the rich dad, who was a successful entrepreneur, he uses them to show the different mindsets people have about money.
I'm starting to see his point. It's about challenging those deep-seated beliefs we have about money that could be holding us back.
Precisely. Kiyosaki says the rich don't work for money, they make their money work for them.
Mhm.
They focus on building assets that generate passive income instead of trading their time for money at a typical job.
So it's about shifting from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance,
Yes,
creating wealth rather than just earning a paycheck.
you got it. Kiyosaki encourages us to think like entrepreneurs, even if we don't start our own businesses. He emphasizes financial literacy, smart investing, and building multiple streams of income.
Okay, this is starting to sound a little bit like, a get-rich-quick scheme. Is it really that easy?
To be honest, Kiyosaki's message is simplified to appeal to a lot of people. And he has been criticized for oversimplifying complicated financial concepts and for sometimes promoting risky investment strategies.
So it's important to approach his advice with caution.
Definitely. What's valuable about his book, though, is that it makes us question what we think we know about money.
Okay.
And to be more proactive about our finances, he encourages us to learn about money, find mentors, and create a plan for building wealth.
Okay, I see how that could be empowering. To feel more in control of your financial future. Speaking of taking control, let's talk about a book that's all about mastering your thoughts. The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Perfect.
Oh, a classic. I think I even saw this on my grandmother's nightstand. But isn't positive thinking a bit, well, naive? Life throws us curveballs that we can't just think our way out of, right?
You're right. Positive thinking by itself isn't some magic solution to life's problems. But Peele's message is more than just slapping on a smile and pretending everything's fine.
Okay, I'm curious to learn more. What's his main message then?
Peele truly believes that our thoughts have incredible power. He thinks positive thinking can help us overcome obstacles, reach our goals, and live more fulfilling lives. He stresses the importance of faith, prayer, and visualization in developing that positive mindset.
So it's about connecting with something bigger than yourself and harnessing the power of belief.
Exactly. Peele believes that when our thoughts align with our values and dreams, we create this powerful force that can bring positive change into our lives.
I can see how that would be inspiring. To believe you have the power to create the life you want. But what about when things get really tough? How can you stay positive when it feels like everything is falling apart?
Peele acknowledges that life is full of challenges, but he wants us to see them as opportunities to grow. He suggests reframing those negative thoughts.
Right.
Focus on solutions instead of problems, and surround yourself with people who lift you up and inspire you.
So it's about looking for that silver lining, that spark of hope, even when things are dark.
Exactly. And Peele says this is something you work on. It's not a one-time fix.
Okay.
He encourages developing a daily habit of positive thinking through prayer, affirmations, and gratitude.
Okay, I'm starting to appreciate Peele's message. It's not about ignoring the hard parts of life, but facing them with a resilient and hopeful mindset. Speaking of hope, let's transition to a book that has a really strong message of self-acceptance. Your Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer.
Great transition.
I've heard of this one. It's about taking responsibility for your own happiness
Right.
and letting go of those thoughts that hold you back.
You got it. Dyer's book is a classic in the self-help world. He challenges us to pinpoint and get rid of those erroneous zones in our thinking.
Okay.
Those are the negative thought patterns and limiting beliefs that keep us from living our best lives.
Interesting. But how do you even figure out what those erroneous zones are? They're probably so deeply ingrained that we don't even realize they're there.
You're right. It takes a willingness to really look inward and question your own assumptions.
Yeah.
Dyer gives some practical techniques for becoming more self-aware. Things like paying attention to your self-talk, figuring out what triggers you, and then challenging those negative thoughts.
So it's like becoming a detective of your own thoughts, trying to uncover those hidden beliefs that are secretly making you unhappy.
Exactly. And once you've found those erroneous zones, Dyer wants you to replace them with thoughts and beliefs that empower you.
Okay.
He emphasizes self-love, self-acceptance, and taking charge of your own happiness.
I see how that would be so freeing, to break free from those mental chains holding you back.
It is. Dyer also wants us to let go of needing approval from others. He says we're the only ones who can decide our worth,
Hmm.
and that we don't need anyone else's approval to be happy.
That's a powerful message. It's about taking back your power and living a life that's true to you, not to what others expect.
Exactly. Speaking of living a life true to yourself, let's talk about our last book for this deep dive.
Wow, I can't believe we reached the end already. What book will we be exploring?
It's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Ooh, I've heard of this one. It's a novel, right? Not a typical self-help book.
That's right. It's a story, but it's filled with so much wisdom and insights that have resonated with people all over the world.
Okay.
It's about a young shepherd named Santiago who follows his dreams. And in doing so, he goes on this journey of self-discovery.
So it's a metaphor for the journeys we all take in life.
Exactly. The Alchemist is about listening to your heart, trusting your intuition, and being open to the unknown. It's about realizing that the journey itself is just as important as the destination, and that the greatest treasures are often found in unexpected places.
That's a beautiful message. It's like a reminder that life is an adventure, and we should be curious and open to new experiences.
Precisely. The Alchemist also reminds us that we are all connected. We are all part of something much bigger than ourselves. It's a hopeful and inspiring message, encouraging us to live our lives fully and chase our dreams with passion and purpose.
What a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive into the best self-help books. We've covered so much ground, from productivity and finances to relationships and spirituality. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that there's no single right way to approach personal growth.
You're absolutely right. What's great about self-help is that it offers so many different ideas and strategies. We can take what speaks to us and leave the rest.
It's like a buffet for the soul. We can try different things, find what we like, and create a menu that nourishes our mind, heart, and spirit.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that personal growth is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly learning, evolving, and trying to be the best versions of ourselves.
And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring the world of self-help. Find the books that speak to you, and let their wisdom be your guide as you continue to learn and grow.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep shining your light.
Until next time, keep diving deep.